You might think you've got a handle on global business, but the landscape of multinational enterprises, it's shifting, like dramatically.
It really is.
Forget everything you thought you knew about where global innovation and, competition primarily come from. The rules are definitely being rewritten.
Yeah, absolutely. For decades, this story was pretty much dominated by companies from developed economies.
Right.
The West,
Oh,
Japan.
right.
But today, the story is just way more complex, dynamic, and honestly, quite surprising in many ways.
Totally agree. So today we're doing a deep dive into emerging market multinationals, or EMNEs.
EMNEs, yeah.
And these aren't just companies playing catch-up anymore. They're from these rapidly developing economies, and they're actively reshaping the global business landscape, challenging the established players.
You really are.
We've pulled together a really fascinating stack of sources for this academic articles, looking at their unique strategies, detailed analyses of the hurdles they face. It's quite a mix.
And our mission, really, is to unpack what makes these EMNEs so distinct. What are these surprising hurdles they overcome? And, the innovative ways they're challenging established players, particularly in developed markets.
Yeah. Get ready for some aha moments, hopefully, that'll make you rethink global business a bit.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's start with this whole idea of uniqueness. How different are these firms, really?
Right, because for a long time, the thinking was kind of, well, maybe they're just smaller, less sophisticated versions of Western companies.
Like mini-me's almost.
Exactly. But our sources really push back on that. Many argue EMNEs aren't just scaled-down Western firms. They operate with genuinely distinct characteristics, face different challenges, stuff that traditional international business theories often just miss. And this isn't just like an academic footnote. The point is, it suggests we actually need new frameworks to understand how they grow, how they compete.
We need a new lens.
We really do. It's not a one-size-fits-all world anymore. Think about how we used to classify emerging economies, simple metrics, right? GDP, maybe broad regions.
Yeah, very broad strokes.
Way too simplistic for what's actually happening on the ground now.
Okay, so that's where this new framework comes in, the REE.
Exactly. The REE framework: redefine, embed, elevate. Our sources introduce this as a way to get more nuanced. It uses multidimensional data, things like productive capacities, levels of globalization.
More sophisticated metrics.
Right. And it identifies 4 distinct groups of emerging economies. It's a much richer picture.
Okay, let's break those down. What are the 4 groups?
Well, first you have the steady risers. Think China, India, Vietnam. They're showing balanced, gradual growth across different indicators, consistent progress.
Okay, steady risers. Got it.
Then robust accelerators. Countries like Chile, Malaysia, Thailand, these show really strong performance across multiple sectors, plus dynamic business environments. They're really stepping on the gas.
Hitting the gas, okay. Group 2.
Third, talent-rich challengers. So maybe Argentina, Egypt, Greece, places that really excel in human capital. That's their core strength,
Right.
even if they face other economic headwinds.
Interesting. Leveraging their people.
Precisely. And finally, the resource roller coasters. Brazil, South Africa, Zambia, for instance. You see volatility often linked to natural resources. But maybe surprisingly, they often have quite strong institutional frameworks underneath.
Resource roller coasters.
Yeah.
That's a vivid name. So this framework really highlights how different these paths are.
Absolutely. It shows these distinct developmental signatures. You immediately see why a cookie-cutter approach just doesn't work.
Right. So if these firms have such unique origins, unique contexts,
Right.
what happens when they go global, especially into developed markets?
Yeah, that's where it gets really interesting. Our sources talk about this phenomenon called Western shock.
Western shock. Okay, what's that?
Right. It's not just general culture shock. Yeah. It refers to a very specific set of, let's say, unpleasant experiences and barriers, particularly for Chinese MNEs when they expand into developed markets. It's more than the usual friction.
Okay, so it's beyond the normal challenges of operating abroad, that liability of foreignness idea.
That's Chef, the liability of foreignness,
Yeah.
the basic costs of being unfamiliar, lack of market knowledge, coordination issues, maybe discrimination. That's the baseline.
Right.
But our sources say Chinese EMNEs face 3 specific layers on top of that. It's like foreignness amplified.
3 specific layers. Okay, what are they?
Well, first, you still have the classic liability of foreignness, LOF itself, that lack of host market knowledge, the relational hazards. That's layer 1.
The baseline challenge, okay.
Then layer 2 is the liability of state. This comes from negative perceptions tied to their home government's authoritarian approach.
The political baggage.
Right. The sources point out countries like the US, Canada, Germany, UK historically have had pretty unfavorable views of the Chinese government, seeing it as a major threat. So the firm carries that perception.
So it's not just about the company, it's about where it comes from politically.
Exactly. And the third layer is what's termed the liability of China-ness.
China-ness.
Yeah, it refers to those stereotypical associations. Chinese brands sometimes being seen as cheap, low quality, low price in Western markets.
Right, that historical perception.
And that's a huge hurdle for brand building. It forces them to be incredibly agile, actually turning this disadvantage almost into a driver for differentiation.
Interesting. So these three liabilities kind of stack up.
They do, and they combine with other barriers too. Firm-level things like maybe lacking international talent initially, industry factors, institutional differences, even country-level trends like de-Chinalization talk in some economies.
Wow, it's a complex web of obstacles. And presumably, EMNEs from other regions might face their own versions of these liabilities.
Absolutely. Maybe tied to perceptions of their governance or labor standards, environmental impact. It depends on the origin and the host country's perceptions.
Okay, so faced with all this, Western shock, these liabilities, how do they cope? How do they navigate this? Especially the Chinese firms, the sources detail.
One really fascinating concept highlighted is the surfboard perspective.
The surfboard perspective. Okay, I like that metaphor. What does it mean?
It's not just about getting into the market, that initial springboard idea we've heard before. This is about sustained international expansion in these tough developed markets, using global expansion like a surfboard.
To ride the waves.
Exactly, to ride the waves, to ascend global value chains, move up from basic stuff to higher value activities.
Okay.
And also, crucially, to build reputable brands, often from scratch. Think about those early Chinese pioneers in consumer electronics. Lenovo, Hair, TCL, Hisense.
You know those names.
They invested heavily in things like global sports sponsorships, F1, tennis, FIFA World Cup, even the NFL. That wasn't just random. It was about cultivating global marketing skills and lifting that brand image. It's a long game.
Right, building credibility over time.
And ultimately, it's about cultivating capabilities, constantly developing the skills needed for sustainable global operations.
So the surfboard isn't just for catching one wave, it's about learning to surf continuously.
That's a great way to put it. And the sources identify 5 key surfing behaviors these firms use. It's like their playbook for adaptation.
Okay, let's hear them. 5 surfing behaviors.
First is observing, like reading the waves, anticipating risks, spotting opportunities before they fully form.
Give me an example.
Think about Chinese EV brands, BYD, NIO, Geely, GWM, XPeng, entering the European market. They carefully observe the shift towards EVs, the subsidies, the consumer demand. They read the wave.
Okay, observing. What's next?
Second, capturing or selecting the wave.
Yeah.
This is about being strategic with limited resources.
Why?
Where do you paddle?
Focus.
Exactly. Like how TCL and Changhong used Australia as a sort of trial market. Test things out, hone their marketing there before tackling bigger, tougher markets like the US or Europe. Smart resource allocation.
Makes sense. Trial runs.
Third is displacing. This is like dealing with shock waves. It's about reconfiguring your resources quickly when you hit non-market barriers like geopolitical stuff.
So bouncing back.
Bouncing forward even. The example given is when Canada ordered some Chinese firms out of lithium mining in 2022 over national security. They didn't just pack up, they strategically shifted focus and resources towards Australia. Found a different wave.
Resourceful. Okay, number 4.
Fourth, mitigating. Think duck diving under a wave or diffusing risk. This means innovating while actively dealing with those liabilities we talked about.
How so?
Well, DJI drones managing to keep huge market share in the U.S. despite government prohibitions linked to perceived military ties. That's mitigating. Or TikTok moving U.S. user data to Oracle servers to try and ease regulatory concerns. Proactively addressing the pushback.
Got it. Diffusing the situation. And the last one.
Fifth is enhancing. This is like balancing and turning on the surfboard, building balanced dynamic capabilities. Innovation, branding, constantly evolving.
Like BYD and EVs.
Perfect example. Combining battery tech, design, connectivity, catching up to Tesla so quickly by late 2023. Or Huawei launching its own Harmony OS after the Android ban. turning a crisis into a catalyst for deeper capability building.
Wow, that surfboard perspective really captures the agility required.
It really does. But here's something maybe even more counterintuitive, one of those aha moments you mentioned.
Okay.
It's about those institutional voids we touched on earlier, the weak regulations, lack of legal clarity, missing market intermediaries.
Yeah, you'd assume those are just huge problems, right? Obstacles.
You would. But for EM&Es, particularly in China, according to these sources, these voids can actually drive the development of crucial dynamic capabilities.
Mm.
They can enhance competitiveness in unexpected ways.
Wait, so the weaknesses in the system actually make them stronger in some ways?
Kind of, yeah. It forces them to develop muscles they might not have otherwise. The Chinese auto industry is a prime example here, showing 3 key capabilities born from navigating these voids.
Okay, this I got to hear. 3 capabilities from voids.
First, a sensing capability, an openness to change, adapting to regulatory gaps. BYD is a great case. They started by, let's be frank, copying tech.
Mm.
But they sensed the shift towards EVs, aligned with Beijing's going global policy, leveraged government support, and became a leader. They sensed the void and the opportunity within it.
So reading the gaps, not just the rules.
Exactly. Second, seizing capability. This is often called China speed. It's about incredibly rapid reconfiguration of business models, super fast product development, even when there's a lack of shared market knowledge, what the sources call cognitive voids.
China speed. Yeah, you hear about that. How do they do it?
They're heavily data-driven, sometimes with privileged access to data. This fuels incredibly fast innovation cycles, intense internal competition. You see those price wars. Think Li Auto, NIO, XPeng, launching multiple EV models in just a few years. It's blistering speed.
Blistering is right. Okay, sensing, seizing. What's the third?
The third is a transforming capability. This is linked to what some call WAN culture. In environments where maybe standard norms or ethical benchmarks are less established, normative voids, firms often fill that gap with intense internal pressure.
WAN culture, what's that entail?
It often involves things like the 996 work schedule, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., 6 days a week. It's this culture of relentless internal competition and continuous improvement, almost out of necessity. It embeds rapid change into their very DNA, transforming how they operate.
Wow, so the voids create pressure that forces adaptation and speed?
In a way, yes. It's a tough environment, but it breeds a certain kind of dynamism.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. We've talked about surfing, dealing with voids. What about how they engage with existing global structures, like value chains?
Ah, right. They're not just participating in global value chains, or GVCs. The sources talk about them strategically enveloping them.
Enveloping GVCs, what does that mean practically?
It's not just about taking market share. It's more fundamental. It's a process where an EM&E expands into a developed market. M&Es, a DM&E's value chain, often by forming cooperative ties with the DM&E's own suppliers and partners. They leverage the combined resources to then capture share and, eventually, maybe even orchestrate the chain.
So working within the existing structure to ultimately reshape it.
Exactly. And it's playing out dramatically in the EV industry right now. Remember Jim Farley, Ford's CEO?
Yeah.
He called Chinese EV makers an existential threat. Why? Because he saw their low-cost production, their advanced tech, their aggressive global expansion. That's GVC envelopment in action.
So the EV industry is like a case study for this.
A perfect one. The sources break it down into 3 stages. Stage 1, roughly 2001-2010, was domestic assembly and learning. DM&Es dominated. Chinese suppliers got in via joint ventures, learned through technology transfer. They were apprentices, basically.
Learning the ropes.
Stage 2, 2011-2020, was climbing the value chain.
Yeah.
Chinese EM&Es like Chery, Geely, BYD really emerged. Both DM&Es like Tesla opening its Shanghai Gigafactory, and these EM&Es started sourcing more locally, collaborating more with local suppliers. They were moving up.
Becoming more central.
Right. And stage 3, 2021 to now, is full-blown GVC envelopment. EM&Es like BYD overtaking Tesla in global EV sales in late 2023 are starting to lead these GVCs. They're driving advancements in electrification, autonomous driving, expanding globally like crazy.
How are they achieving that lead?
By penetrating existing GVCs, integrating super tightly with suppliers, co-evolving with DM&Es where needed, and crucially, building their own distribution channels. It's a multi-pronged takeover.
It sounds like it fundamentally changes the power dynamics.
Completely. EM&Es become the new orchestrators, especially in green tech, often with disruptive, resource-efficient business models. And suppliers gain power too. Think CATL becoming the world's 3rd largest EV battery supplier by 2016 through partnerships with BMW, Tesla, Ford. They leverage that collaboration.
So it's not just the main EMNE firm, but the whole
And
ecosystem shifts.
exactly. And there's this huge emphasis on scale and speed in manufacturing, which makes green products more accessible globally. Plus, you see these distributed innovation systems emerging, more knowledge sharing, more open innovation. Remember that stat about BYD filing 16 times more patents than Tesla?
Yeah, that was staggering. It really is about redesigning the rules of the game.
It really is.
Okay, so these external strategies are fascinating. But what about internal challenges? Inside the firms themselves, our sources mention corporate governance issues.
Yeah, that's another critical piece of the puzzle. EMNEs often face unique governance challenges, things like principal conflicts.
Principal,
Yeah,
not principal agent.
right. Where controlling owners, maybe a founding family or the state, might act in ways that benefit them, but not necessarily the minority shareholders. And you often see highly concentrated ownership structures.
How does that play out differently for different types of EMNEs?
Well, take family firms,
Yeah.
FS, or business groups, BGs. Sometimes preserving family control or identity becomes more important than seizing every growth opportunity, even if performance suffers a bit. BGs can pool resources, which is good, but they can also create internal conflicts or opportunism.
So family ties can be a double-edged sword. And state-owned enterprises,
Yeah.
SOEs.
SOEs have their own dynamic. Their international moves are often guided by state agendas, seeking resources, upgrading technology for the nation. And that high state ownership can be viewed with suspicion overseas, seen as a politically motivated, adding to that liability of state we talked about.
Right, more political baggage. So how do they overcome these internal hurdles to actually go global effectively?
The sources offer several clever solutions owners and managers can use. For family firms, one way is involving institutional investors, especially foreign institutional investors, FIIs, or mutual funds.
How does that help?
These investors often see FFs as less risky than others might, and they can provide capital for going abroad, while also pushing for better internal governance standards as a condition.
Ah, outside pressure for internal reform. Makes sense. What about SOEs?
For SOEs, hybrid ownership models can work partnering with domestic institutional investors. It raises cash without necessarily triggering the same political alarms abroad as full state ownership.
Huh.
Also, strategic investments by foreign corporates can be valuable. They bring not just money, but knowledge, intangible benefits, and can encourage reluctant CEOs to embrace internationalization.
Getting the right partners again.
Exactly. And in some places, like Turkey, apparently, you see multifamily coalitions, families teaming up to share risk, strengthen governance, handle uncertainty together.
Interesting collaborative models.
Yeah. And within family firms, empowering non-family members in key roles can really help. It can counter that inherent risk aversion, sometimes associated with keeping everything in the family, especially when competition is fierce.
Bringing in outside perspectives.
Right. And finally, the characteristics of the CEO matter a lot. CEO duality, where the CEO is also the board chair, sounds tricky, but the sources suggest it can provide unified authority that actually helps push through bold international moves, especially if the CEO has prior foreign experience.
Unified vision, maybe.
Perhaps. And for Chinese firms specifically, aligning with higher-level government bodies, provincial or national, not just local, seems to be more beneficial for navigating those complex political waters.
Lots of internal levers they can pull there.
Definitely. It's not just about the external market.
Okay, so we've covered market strategies, internal governance. Let's pivot to something equally crucial, especially in developed markets. Sociopolitical engagement. Getting accepted, basically.
Yes, this is huge. Our sources stress that good market strategies aren't enough. EM&Es need effective non-market strategies to overcome what they call discriminatory hazards, those negative biases stemming from country of origin stereotypes.
Right, dealing with the China-ness liability or similar issues. How do they analyze this?
They use the stereotype content model, SCM. It's a neat way to think about how stakeholders perceive others, including companies. It looks at two dimensions.
Okay, what are they?
Warmth, basically, is the company seen as cooperative, friendly, having good intentions, or competitive, maybe exploitative. And competence, are they seen as capable, effective, able to deliver?
And competence. Okay, so how do EM&Es manage those perceptions?
Primarily through two tools: corporate social responsibility, CSR, and corporate political activity, CPA.
CSR and CPA, how do they relate to warmth and competence?
CSR is mainly about building warmth, doing good things, community engagement, ethical labor practices, environmental efforts, enhances perceptions of warmth. This is especially vital for firms coming from countries already perceived as low warmth. Think of Trina Solar, the Chinese panel maker, winning sustainability awards that directly boosts their warmth score.
Okay, CSR builds warmth. What about CPA? Lobbying, political engagement?
CPA can enhance perceived competence. It
Yeah.
shows the firm has influence, knows how to navigate the system, can get things done. But, and this is a big but,
Oh.
it can seriously reduce perceptions of warmth, especially if it looks self-serving or if there's already hostility towards the home country.
Ah, the ByteDance TikTok example again?
Exactly. Millions spent on lobbying, showing competence maybe, but still facing a potential ban partly because of low perceived warmth and high animosity. It shows CPA as a double-edged sword.
So you can't just lobby your way to acceptance.
Not if people don't trust your intentions. The key, the sources argue, is a balanced configurational approach. You tailor your CSR and CPA mix based on how stakeholders currently see you on that warmth competence map.
Okay, so it depends on the starting point. What are the configurations?
If you're in the contemptuous group, low competence, low warmth, you need to start with basics. Visible grassroots CSR, proving compliance, talking to regulators, just building fundamental trust.
Learning from the ground up.
If you're seen as paternalistic, low competence but high warmth, maybe friendly but not very capable, you leverage that warmth. Use it as a base to showcase your tech, your quality, gradually building perceived competence.
Okay, prove you can deliver.
The tricky one is the envious group, high competence, low warmth. Like ByteDance, powerful, but maybe not trusted. Here, you must mitigate the negativity. Focus heavily on CSR community development, ethical practices, transparency to build warmth and soften that perceived edge.
Address the trust deficit directly.
Absolutely, yeah. And if you reach the admiration group, high confidence, high warmth, the goal, you don't rest. You maintain standards, lead on sustainability, maybe join advisory boards, solidify your position as a trusted leader.
It's a dynamic process of managing perceptions. Is there a company that's done this really well?
TSMC is a great example. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company.
The chip giant.
Right.
Right.
World leader. Undeniably competent. But they've also strategically aligned their strong CSR history with their CPA. As they built plants in Arizona, they also started lobbying in the U.S. in 2020, but focused on mutually beneficial things, like a U.S.-Taiwan tax treaty.
So competence plus collaborative engagement.
Exactly. A holistic approach that boosted perceptions of both their competence and their warmth, helping them navigate that liability of foreignness very effectively. It shows it can be done.
That's a really powerful illustration. Okay, wrapping this incredible deep dive up, what does all this mean for people listening, managers, maybe policymakers?
For managers of EM&Es, the big takeaway is you need a multi-level approach.
Yeah.
You can't just focus on one thing. You have to consider the macro environment, social, political, economic trends.
The big picture.
Right. Plus the institutional environment regulations, those crucial voids, industry dynamics, your own firm's capabilities, and your network ties. It's connecting all the dots.
So practically, what strategies does that lead to?
Several key ones come up consistently. Local adaptation is huge. Customizing products, operations, like Huawei adapting phones for mobile money in Africa, or McDonald's meat-free menus in India.
Tailoring to the market.
Local partnerships, teaming up for market knowledge, regulatory help, like Tata Motors partnering with Chery in China.
Leveraging local expertise.
Proactive regulatory engagement, building relationships before problems arise, like Embraer working with Chinese officials.
Getting ahead of the curve.
Technological innovation, but specifically aimed at local needs, differentiating to relevant tech.
Solving local problems.
Comprehensive risk management, thinking about currency swings, political instability, like Mahindra and Mahindra using supplier diversification and hedging in Latin America.
Building resilience.
And finally, never underestimate cultural sensitivity. Understanding and respecting local customs builds trust. It sounds basic, but it's vital.
So a really integrated, locally attuned strategy. What about for policymakers trying to understand or support these firms or deal with their impact?
For policymakers, the message is clear. Move beyond those simplistic old classifications. First, redefine development benchmarks. Maybe form development affinity groups based on those 4 clusters we discussed, steady risers, robust accelerators, etc., to share relevant knowledge.
Group countries by similar trajectories, not just geography or GDP.
Exactly. Second, embed policies in context. Design different approaches for different clusters, support balanced growth for steady risers, help manage volatility for resource roller coasters, no more one-size-fits-all policies.
Tailored policy support.
And third, elevate indigenous strengths. Create initiatives that build on what each cluster does best. leverage human capital and talent-rich challengers for knowledge industries,
Yeah.
encourage collaboration within clusters, play to their unique strengths globally.
Really focus development efforts strategically.
Precisely.
Okay, so you've just taken us on a fascinating journey through the world of emerging market multinationals. We've seen how they navigate challenges like Western shock, turn institutional voids into opportunities, use strategies like surfboarding and GVC envelopment, master sociopolitical engagement, and tackle internal governance. It's clear they aren't just catching up anymore.
Not at all. They're innovating, adapting, and genuinely reshaping the global business landscape with really distinctive approaches. It forces everyone established players, policymakers, us to rethink how global business actually works today.
It really does. So here's a final thought to leave everyone with. As these EMNEs continue to rise and evolve, what new shocks or maybe envelopments will the next wave bring? And how will they force established players and maybe even global institutions to adapt in ways we can't even imagine right now?
That's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? Something to chew on.